Hello, my name's Brian. I'm an agile management consultant, and earlier last year I left the smoke of old London town and headed north. Welcome to glorious Yorkshire. Now I'm using the agile management practices to get stuff done around the house. We have some grand plans on the roadmap. But plans are nothing. We've actually got to get stuff done. But if agility is just a bunch of silly words to you, then don't worry. Stick around. Just enjoy watching stuff getting done.
The design brief was simple. York's shambles, but in green. How to distill and capture the feeling that the shambles creates. It's narrow. The overhangs of the medieval buildings loom over you. As always, the design starts life as a model in the CAD package. Change is quick and cheap in the digital domain, but once I've started cutting timber, changing the plans gets costly. Experiment here. Some theatrical conceits are going on. The buildings are angled to make it look like the street is getting narrower and to make the frontages more visible as you walk in. But each building steps back so the route through doesn't get any narrower. To begin with, the buildings are all identical, 8 foot wide, 2 stories tall, with an overhang. I know that the prairies were last time, but there's a certain amusement to be found in the fact that the detailed designs for the Emerald City were put together in Denver, where the prairies rise to meet the Rockies. Detailed design is the engineering. How will it fit together? How will it be assembled? 24 hours later, I'm stuck in Schiphol Airport, Amsterdam, looking at the designs. With as clear ahead as is possible from an overnight flight in economy class, my critical assessment of the designs is they are too complex. The detail of the woodworking will be time-consuming, and there is an increased risk the pieces will not fit together. The layout is still valid, but I start again. Starting again isn't a failure. I've learnt from the first attempt. I can see what will and won't work. That knowledge is incorporated into the second attempt at a detailed design, ever simpler. The individual pieces of the buildings are reduced to simple square cuts wherever possible, minimizing any intricate joinery. Whilst each building is unique, there is commonality between the pieces. I will be able to learn from the repetition. Hopefully, the later pieces will be quicker to build because of that learning. Integrate early and often. It's a mantra that served us well on the crashed Prairie House, but here on the Emerald City, we can't. Part of the timber delivery is running late. Without it, I can't assemble the Emerald City. I cut the timber that I do have to length, drill holes, fit captive nuts, label and organize. Where I can, I check the joints, but none of the pieces are properly integrated into flats, so I don't know whether it's truly going to fit together. That is not my timber delivery. The timber has finally arrived. The flats are being assembled, but there are problems with the assembly.
Sometimes you have to step away from the problem in order to be able to solve it. The problem I was facing was that the nails holding the plywood onto the frames of the Emerald City, they were pulling through the plywood. They are pinhead nails to go in a nail gun after all. And try as I might, there in the garage, I just couldn't solve the problem. More nails wasn't doing it. It wasn't until I got in the car to drive home that evening my mind had time to wander. Obviously not wandering too far because I am driving, but that was when it suddenly occurred to me, use screws. They are a positive fixing. They will not pull through the plywood. So next morning, packet of 3/4 inch screws in hand, problem solved. But it took that space, stepping away, in order to be able to solve it.
Battles are fought and won on logistics. The challenge I've got is logistics of keeping everything dry here in the workshop space. The scenery I need to build this week is big and it's going to fill the space very rapidly. And the weather outside, the Indian summer has gone.
I use spacer blocks to ensure that the backing timbers are correctly positioned to allow the adjacent sides of the buildings to sit in the right place, so the corners will be flush. The spacer blocks are made up from offcuts of timber and ply. There are different sizes for different spaces.
Forecasting. Each flat is taking me 2 hours to complete. I have tried over the last few days to optimize that and get it a little bit quicker, but everything is still taking 2 hours to complete. What this means is projecting forwards, given the number of flats that I still have to build and the time I have left, it's going to be close. A little too close for comfort, because get-in day is looming and can't be moved. Oh well, better just keep going, get some more flats done.
Not everything is done up at the farm. For a couple of smaller jobs, my garage workshop is preferable, as I have the machinery to do the work sensibly and accurately, and being small, they can go in the car up to the farm. To give some sense of solidity beneath the overhangs, there are some faux supporting timbers that will line up with the timber framing on the flats above and below. These are formed from the same 160mm timber as used on the flats. However, there is significantly more shaping that needs to be done.
So this is the setup for cutting the notches out of the faux supports on the overhangs. Set up this way, so the stop is here, so I'm pushing in. If I don't push in far enough, then we'll cut short and we can recut it. Whereas if the stop was on this end and I didn't get up against the stop, then I'd cut short and we'd mess everything up. And I have checked repeatedly that the blade will clear the blue clamp. It will. I promise.
The first 3 appear identical, only 23 more to go.
Notches next. 21. Width of piece of board. Depth of piece of board. For that we need the bandsaw. Need to tidy up the bandsaw. All right. So this is the setup for the cut I've got to make. The walnut is acting as a fence to keep the stock piece running parallel to the blade. And then that little bit of pine is acting as the end stop, so I get the right depth. That's the cut I need to make, just on a scrap piece of timber, and it is the right depth to fit that bit of timber, and just there, it's coming in at the right length. Repeat 26 times. That's looking really good. Slight lip there. You're talking fraction of a millimetre. And probably just because I haven't pushed it in tight. That's the piece I've cut down. That's two of the shaped pieces either side. And that is the width of a piece of timber that we are trying to match. And we are close. Within tolerances for what I need. About maybe a mil out, if that. Yeah, I can feel there's a gap there. Smudge there. Good enough. So this is where I need the cut to end up on the underside. So if I start the cut here, cutting that way, I am giving myself as much free as I can over here, but knowing that I will end up with a slightly overlong piece. I can then measure all of that and then calculate how much I need to shift. Do that, get close, and then slowly inch my way in until I'm on the mark, which is 235. That's looking good. That join is really close. Getting closer. Little one's done. That's all the raw parts. They just need to be assembled. Glue time. Yay. Best results above 13 degrees centigrade. Might just have to carry on regardless.
All of my long clamps are up at the farm, so I am reliant upon gravity and maybe a little bit of weight to hold everything together whilst the glue dries.
5 down. 8 to go.
Last one glued up, they can all dry overnight.
Early start. Today's plan, try and get the bay windows sorted, then get the lower frontages for the bay windows done, then the two complex side flats that support the roof. Having stared at the drawings yesterday and not really making head or tail of them, despite me making the drawings, I went back, looked at the plans, looked at the CAD model, so I could see it in 3D and spin around it. Tweaked the drawings a bit and remembered that there is a little picture that shows me exactly what I need to see how everything fits. Try and get them done. If they're done, then I might be able to get back to the pristine prairie house tomorrow, which leaves the big flats for Monday. And then we're pretty much done on construction. Still logistics, still manoeuvring everything around.
I've built 6 bay window segments over the last few days, gluing and clamping the frames together and then letting everything dry overnight. To create the bay effect, an angled cut needs to be made along the length of the frames. A small test cut at one end checks that both the angle and depth are set right on the circular saw. The depth stop on the ruler ensures that the fence is consistent along the length of the frame.
Quick sanity check to ensure I've got all the right angles. That goes on there, that's flush with that edge. There is then a line been drawn. If I spin that round, that now lines up.
It's only held together with spring clamps, but it looks like everything is going to fit. One more piece completed from this absolutely massive jigsaw puzzle.
End of a long day. Goal was to get these flats finished. I've got 2/3 through one of them. Well, last day in the barn. A few things still to build. Don't know where I'm going to build them. The barn is absolutely full all the way through. So it's going to be challenging. Tomorrow, everything moves up to the big house. And we start putting it all together.
8 buildings means 8 front doors. Purchasing them new is beyond the available budget, so I'm building them. I have built doors before. It's not that difficult, just time consuming. Also, I only need the front face of the door. The rear will never be seen. This involves machining a profile along the length and then machining the opposite profile into the ends of the cross members. Glue everything together and nail some plywood across the back.
So the plan is to use that round over cutter with an undersized bearing to create a beaded cove on the side of the pieces of timber, and then on the ends I'll use this that way up to create a rabbit, and then that to create the corresponding inverted cove so that they will slot together like that. And that one isn't perfect. That's the results of experimentation. When I come back to do it, I will need to get everything properly aligned. But at least I know the bits are going to work out. They will fit together and create the right shapes. It's just taken some time to get here. A bit annoying that I have to do it in 2 passes with the rabbit and then the curved bit, but better than anything else. It gives a bit of interest to these doors.
Shaping the doors is another job that is best done in my home workshop. The beaded cove is machined into the long edges of the timber. Some of them now need to be cut down to form the rails of the door and the matching profile cut into the ends.
That looks like it's all going to line up. Can't get a straight edge on it because I don't have enough hands, but it's looking good. It has taken an absolute age, just slowly creeping up on the right depth, but there. That is a good joint. Just need to do it on all of those pieces now.
The timber acting as the push stick supports the piece being machined and stops the cutter from splitting the timber as it cuts across the grain.
Moving day. Big push yesterday to get the last flats finished. We got them green. But all of this has got to come out and go in a truck somewhere.
The Long Gallery, the largest room in Castle Howard. The Emerald City is going into the northern half. That half alone is some 60 foot long, and the walls are lined with historic 18th century Italian paintings that cannot be damaged. It is another logistical challenge. Even in a room as big as the Long Gallery, space is at a premium. The buildings for the Emerald City need to be erected in a sequence that doesn't block access for the remaining buildings to be built. Construction starts at the far end of the gallery. This is where the lack of earlier integration starts to hit. Most of the flats line up, the bolts drop in cleanly. but not all. In some places, it is necessary to resort to screwing the flats together, which will be more time consuming to remove when it all gets taken down after Christmas. The long run of buildings along the eastern side is next. I have to call on the floristry team to help lift the flats into place. Progress is slow. The challenge is assembling the relevant number of people necessary for lifting a flat vertical. They have to be gathered from whichever corner of the house they are doing their own jobs in. There are additional frames within the buildings to support the shelves that the window displays will go on, and to provide additional structure to the buildings. These all need to be fitted around a pair of pianos and some antique furniture that must all be hidden behind and within the buildings, because the pieces of furniture are too big to be removed from the room safely.
Odd to be back here with the space completely empty. But I'm back up at the farm. I've got a few things to build, some timber to cut for some roof trusses. The doors still need to be built, and a few other bits and bobs. Better do it up here down there, the castle.
I don't have enough long sash clamps to do all of the doors at once, so it's a staged process. The short stiles are first glued onto one long rail using the shorter sash clamps. Once the glue has set, then the second rail is glued on using the longer sash clamps, at the same time as the stiles of the next door are gluing up. The devil is in the detail, and the details take time. The corners are being closed up with brackets, glass is going into the bay windows, and the roofs need tiling. All whilst the floristry team is starting to dress the buildings, and the lighting crew are starting to fit up the lights.
It is very early on the last day of the build. Press day is tomorrow, so everything has to be finished today. I am just gluing up the last few doors. Managed to get a few of them painted last night. That's more of the pristine prairie house, painted, ready to go in. I've got window frames to build and paint so that they can dry and then go up to the castle. Lunchtime, get the last few bits in place. Race to the finish.
Semi-organised chaos. This is a brief lull in proceedings whilst everyone is down tools for lunch. But windows are being dressed, window fronts and doors are going in, shingles on roofs, lighting is happening, a race to the finish. The television documentary followed the Prairie House storyline, but it was the Emerald City that broke me. With hindsight, I should have organised my own dedicated crew. Instead, I was begging others to help lift things into place, others that already had their own jobs to do. Over the weekend, I ended up drafting in my partner and calling on an old university friend to help. I'm too busy to even think about setting up the camera as we lift the upper sections into place. And just like that, it's all over. The great and the good are off to their first night party, and I'm hauling my tools through the servants' passages below stairs. That's it. Until next year.